All right. Okay. So I'm recording now. We will be discussing these 7 elements of culture. Yesterday, I gave you guys the assignment of, asking your family certain questions about your culture, kind of like what you guys are about, where you come from. I know some of you guys may have done it. Some of you guys still haven't, but just make sure that those are completed by tomorrow. Okay. If anybody has any questions about that, please shoot me a message on how to go about that. But this is where it all comes together. Okay. Culture is not one single thing, right? Culture does not represent one single aspect of your life, but multiple. But first, I want to make sure that I share with you guys exactly kind of what culture is. Okay, hang on. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull something up out of this. Screw it, whatever. So culture, right? It is a system of beliefs, values, and assumptions about life that guide behavior and are shared by a group of people. Okay, things include such as, what kind of food they eat, the language they speak, the clothing they wear, what kind of tools they use, music, arts, customs, beliefs, kind of what they center their whole life around. And sometimes that includes religion, right? Kind of the people often use religion to really explain who they are and what they're about. But remember, that is just one aspect of that. Relating it back to geography, but more specifically, the 5 themes. Culture falls under the place theme of geography, right? Because it answers the question, what is it like there? Remember that the theme of place, right? There are two kinds of describing the theme place. Do you remember what those 2 things are? What are those 2 types of places? Who can just say them out loud for me real quick? There are 2 different categories of place.
Isn't it absolute and then physical?
One of them is correct. Absolute, that would be for location, right? That is absolute location, but it's physical. Physical place represents the nature aspect, right, of wherever it is that we're talking about. What is natural, what is, naturally made in the environment. Culture more represents the human place, anything that humans create, right? Anything that comes from our own minds or our ideas, right? Kind of like what culture is supposed to describe. So culture, right, is a system of beliefs, values, anything that has been made by people, whether it's actual physical things that you create, like food, clothing, tools, or how we represent our culture through other types of, non-material things, like the way we speak, the types of religion, that we believe in, any other types of beliefs, right? Anything that comes from humans is basically our culture, right? But that is a very vague, general way of describing things, because that looks completely different when talking about not just, different countries, but even, specific individuals. Like my overall culture may be different from that of maybe another, I don't know, Mexican American person, right? We could still have very different individual cultures. And that is one thing that I want you guys to think about, your own individual culture and how that relates to a much larger scale. Like, for example, your whole family culture, whether you come from a specific race or ethnicity, and then expanding that even more as you as Americans, right? We all belong to this American culture, right? But then that's the question though, like, what is the American culture? What is that even like? Most likely you'll have a lot of people giving you different responses and answers because of their own specific individual experiences. And that is one thing that I would like for you guys to think about as I will be going over this information. All right, makes sense? Make sense, everybody? Okay. Because the whole point is that I just want you guys to, you know, before we go out and talk about other people's cultures, because most likely there'll be like, why are they doing stuff like that? That's weird. Like, why? Like, this is so messed up. Like, that's not right. You'll hear a lot of that. You'll probably think that yourself. And honestly, that's natural. That's normal. But we want to make sure that we stay away from that, because we as individuals, we as our own person, right, will have our own way of thinking, and that will always be different from other people, always, no matter even if you belong in the same group or not. Okay, so how do you guys describe your culture? All right, so go ahead and kind of take your time for this next slide. Okay, hang on, now I know what I can do. Okay, so everybody should be able to see there. All right, everybody. So I will check out your responses in a little bit. Let's move on. Another kind of like give you an image of just what culture is about, what things that we can see and things we can't, right? Like the obvious things, you know, like how I mentioned, how we dress, what type of foods we eat, the type of languages we speak. But below that, which I believe is kind of like the biggest aspect of who you are based on your culture, right? Like your beliefs, how you handle emotions, right? Your ethics, what you think is right or wrong, how you use physical space, your communication, how you use your time. A lot of those things, stuff that we don't even think about, right? Things that we aren't even conscious about, right? That also describes kind of how you go about life. And you know, to the point of it all, that's kind of what culture is. It kind of really teaches you how you're supposed to go about living your life. Okay, so the 7 themes of culture. These are the 7 things we're going to be talking about, 7 aspects of culture that really describe, again, not only your own individual life, your culture, but everyone else around you, whether it be your family, the school that you're in, your neighborhood, the entire country, right? All of these people are gonna be going through an experience that may be similar as yours. But like I said before, everyone is different. Everyone has their own experiences. But in the end, everybody is going to come from a single culture. And these 7 themes will describe kind of what that culture is. So we can go about 2 ways, everybody, right? So you can think about it in a way of how these things affect you personally, or how it affects us as Americans here living in the US, how these 7 things affect us as Americans, or how these 7 things affect you as an individual. So there are 2 ways to go about that. All right, the first one, it is social organization. This is a very simple one. I know there's a lot of information on here, okay? But the gist of it is, however, it's just like the way we organize people into whatever units, right? To meet those basic needs. I've talked about these basic needs before, like, you know, shelter, food, drinking water, medicine, right? Like any type of hospital care. How are those needs provided to everyone in the society, right? How are we going to structure all of those people? A lot of cultures, as you may already see, right? A lot of cultures, they depend on families. So I'm recording this, Achilles, and in a way you're already taking notes by completing the Pear Deck. As I said before, all of this information will be sent out to you like via Google Docs, like through email, I believe. So you'll have this information. But as I always say, I'm glad you brought it up. As I always say, it is always beneficial for you guys to kind of take certain quick, small notes, if possible, of the information that I will be covering. I do not expect you guys to write every single little thing down as I go through them, but it would be very helpful for you all to, you know, write down some things that catch your attention or ways that will help you remember this information a little better. I'll get back to you on that, Josiah. So a lot of cultures, the way they go about society and how to meet these basic needs are to form families. Family is the most important unit of this social organization, okay? Because here, what goes down is not only providing these basic needs, but teaching them how to behave, how to act, and what to believe in that specific society. There are a lot of cultures, right, that that believe that, okay, once you turn a certain age, like I believe like 11, 12, 13, during those ages, they're like, okay, you're already an adult. You should go out and do what needs to be done, get a job or whatever, start handling responsibilities. In our culture, in the American culture, we tend to not do that, right? We like to continue teaching them on how to behave and how to act through school, like going to education. One quick note, that's just something extra, like about, you know, this whole idea of being a teenager and adolescent. I don't know if you guys know, but like being a teenager, that's something that we created ourselves, like our society. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to get through that. I'm going to go through this. I keep feeling that I'm in the actual classroom teaching, but nope, can't. So how do we go about this family stuff? All right, so we have the nuclear family, wife, husband, and the children, and the child or children, right? Typical in an industrial society like here in the US, right? When talking about the nuclear family, we're talking about the core family. You, your mom, your dad, your stepdad, your stepmom, whatever, whoever is in your home, whatever adult person that is there, that who is teaching you on how to behave, no matter what it is that they're teaching, right? That is your nuclear family. Expanding from that, when talking about your grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, that will be your extended family. Sometimes a lot of these extended family members often live in the same home. This is seen in a lot of developing countries. Developed countries, this happens as well, but not as much as developing countries. When talking about the extended family again, right? There is usually one thing that is kind of like what a lot of cultures have in common is that there is a respect for elders, right? It is very, very strong. Some of you guys really admire your grandparents. Some cultures even go beyond that by, like, for example, like in East Asia, I think like in Japan and China, where the elderly people are seen to such a high degree that, for example, when everybody sits down together at dinner, no one can be seated higher than the seniors, right? They all have to be seated a little higher than everybody else because of just how much respect that they have for them, right? So that's that culture. You guys with me so far? Everyone's still good? I hope so. Okay, it's just a little pause time. Make sure that we're all good. Another way to go about this, everybody, is social classes, how we rank people in our society, right? So one part of it, right, is the family, kind of what the family is about, but also how do we categorize that family, right? And what should we look like to make sure that they are put in the correct class or the status? A lot of cultures usually depend on how much money you have, what type of job you have, you know, the type of education that you've gotten, or even just kind of like where your family comes from. A lot of cultures use these kinds of criteria to determine whether you're going to be in an upper class or a lower class. And that is how we organize society, our social organization, right? We put people together in families. Some cultures don't even rely on families. They just have kids and they just say, all right, you're out into the world. Go be an adult and live a life. Our culture's like, nah, we'll stick to families. But even now, families are starting to look a little different nowadays. And that's okay. Progress, change, it happens. So that was social organization. So every time I talk about that, just think of families. How are kids being raised? What are they being taught? And how are they being ranked? Okay, that's what I want you to understand about social organization. Customs and traditions. This one's pretty self-explanatory, right? I won't spend too much time on this one. Customs, which is a traditional and widely accepted way of behaving or doing something that is specific to a particular society, places, or time. Customs such as, like what you do for Christmas, right? What kind of customs do you have? And a lot of Latino, I would say probably Mexicans, right? For Christmas, they do little things called posadas, which are just kind of like, multiple parties to celebrate the birth of Jesus. That is a type of custom. Maybe you guys have your own specific customs and how you celebrate certain holidays, your birthday, major events like when someone's born or maybe when someone dies. What goes down during those events? How are people expected to behave and what are they expected to do? A lot of these rules of behavior are enforced ideas of what is right and wrong, right? Like, for example, if you're at a funeral and everyone's laughing, having like a great time when the person's actually being buried, that would probably not be a right thing to do, right? Or if you're at a wedding and then all of a sudden the ex shows up and starts talking about how like that person still loves the bride or the groom, whoever, right? That will probably be seen as wrong, right? So it's these kinds of things that really tells you exactly how you're supposed to go about, going through a type of social event or gathering. In shorter words, how you're supposed to behave. What are the ideas of right and wrong? Okay, so for customs and traditions, just kind of draw or type something that you believe is, a part of your own individual or your family tradition. Or again, if you, like, for example, I said that, me as a Mexican American, I have certain customs and traditions that I follow, right? You could base it off based like on your race or your ethnicity, but it doesn't always have to be that, right? The way you look and where you come from isn't the only thing that's a part of your culture. There are many things, as I will soon get to. But just take some time. Okay, what are some things that, you think is part of your tradition, or what are some of your customs? Oops. Yeah, if you can't think of anything, that's okay. Right? I want us to start thinking about, these traditions. But kind of what I was saying, is there a certain thing that you guys do when you celebrate a birthday, or even something that like one specific thing for me, I don't know, is like, I think I mentioned this before, that usually as I'm getting older, right, every Friday night, what I like to do now is just kind of like make myself a nice dinner, uh, watch a great movie, like a really good movie, and then just kind of go to bed, right? I know I'm pretty lame nowadays. But that's kind of my own personal tradition. another example of a tradition, right, would be like, oh, every Christmas my family goes out to eat dinner or something like that. Oh, actually, that reminds me. I do have a tradition with me and my friends how every Christmas, actually Christmas Day, we would go out bowling, right? We usually meet up and go bowling. That is kind of a tradition. Um, yeah, but it's something small like that. If you're saying Thanksgiving, what are some things that you can go about, celebrating Thanksgiving? Do you guys watch the football game? Do you watch the parade? Um, for birthdays, is there a specific place where you guys like to go to celebrate your birthday? Exactly. What is that basic way? In a way, that is your own tradition and customs. That's kind of where you say. Interesting. Okay. Oh, crap. Snap. Okay. I spent a lot of time trying to go over all this information, and it's so hard teaching this when I can't be there with you guys. Um, so it is 11:44. We are a minute over. So I'm gonna go ahead and, whoops.